Hey there, and welcome to another episode of Selling AI. Today, we're diving into what it's like selling into infrastructure that makes AI actually work and doing it through one of the biggest transitions companies can go through. I have Joe Simpson on the show today, and Joe is the Director of Enterprise Sales at Alteryx, leading a team of field AEs across the entire West Coast. Here's what we dive into. Joe's been there for 11 years, which means he's lived through an entire evolution of starting out at get analysts out of Excel hell to we're the AI data clearinghouse, powering your agentic workflows. We talk about how enterprise sales has changed in these couple of sales motions as the product conversation has shifted, and how buying criteria has changed. And most importantly, too, how his team is using AI internally to help streamline the buying process. So great, Joe, thanks so much for being here today to talk about selling AI into the enterprise. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Warren. Awesome to be here. Great to see you. We've known each other for a long time. It's fun that we get to do something like this professionally.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm super pumped to dive in. So this is great. So first, give us a little bit about your journey. I know you've been in Alteryx for 11 years. You were at a couple of sales roles beforehand. Then let's talk about your journey within Alteryx. Let's dive in.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, I'm really excited to be able to tell my story here. So I've been in Alteryx for 11 years. That's a long time in the tech world. Honestly, I kind of stumbled upon it so many years ago. I wasn't sure that I wanted to do sales as a profession back then. I was just looking for another job, and I just fell in love with the people, the technology, the conversations that I was having with some of these customers that we were supporting. And yeah, it's kind of been a total life changer for me. When I started, we were less than 250 people. We had less than 50 million in revenue, and less than like 800 customers. And now we have over 8,000 customers. And we've, gone on the public. We went IPO. We went under private equity. Now we're this giant company. It's really exciting. It was a great journey, and I'm, ecstatic to still be around.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's a good point too. Like, in terms of how you evolved through a career. So Joe and I have been friends for 20 years. I don't think I really knew he was in sales until about 5 years ago. So it's like I trying to learn about sales. You know about sales, and like it just sales can come from anywhere kind of scenario. Cool.
My claim to fame is that my first sales job was as an ice cream truck driver on Long Beach Island. That's the
amazing.
Fun fact about me. And I learned the best sales. The best advice for sales back in those days. Shout out to Eric at Bayberry Ice Cream. He said, "You're not selling ice cream, you're selling smiles." And that's true.
That's good to hear.
Right? As salespeople, all we want is for our customers to be happy. It doesn't matter what we're selling, as long as we can find out what makes them happy. That's great. That's the goal.
Choco Tacos sell themselves. If you've built your sales habits off of what it is to sell ice cream, you might have some bad habits that have come into play. So
I was always more of a Snickers ice cream bar myself guy, but
I already added demerit. Great stuff. Well, tell us about your journey within Alteryx. How did you start out? Where did you start your career, and how have you kind of progressed through your career there?
Yeah, so I started off as what we called the commercial expand role. So basically we had patches of like 50 existing customer accounts in the SMB to mid-market space, less than $1 billion in revenue, less than, 100K in ACV spend a lot of times. And our goal was to find new buying centers essentially within the companies for Alteryx. We might dig into Alteryx a little later, but ultimately it's a data tool. So like whether you're in HR or supply chain or finance or wherever IT, you can use our tool. So it was our job to kind of expand and outside of the current user base and find new people that can benefit from it. So I did that for a while. Then I did full cycle SMB. I was focused on landing a new business, moved more into the global 2000 space, landing net new, Fortune 500 customers in the US. And then we, kind of pivoted here and there and, resegmented a few times. And then, I went through 6 bosses in 12 months, the last of which I kind of raised my hand and said, "Hey, I've been doing this for a while. I've been pretty successful. I've always wanted to jump into leadership. Like, let me give this a go." And, the rest is history. I've led a team on the West Coast here for the last 4 years, and it's been extremely heartwarming to see a lot of their successes and me helping and coaching them to see some great successes. And, we've had kids born and houses bought and many presidents clubs attended. And it's just been an awesome ride from that perspective.
That's awesome. So you had 6 bosses in 12 months, and then you raised your hands to step into what seemed to be like a fire where you get churned out every 2 months. What do you think? What changed? What was the inflection point that made it so you weren't 7?
No, it was just a major period of change. We had our co-founder and CEO step down. We had a new CEO. There was new CROs that were being hired, and just like a lot of the old guard was looking to make their exits voluntarily. Um, and so yeah, I joined a team with three people that had been around for a while and a boss who immediately put in her notice as soon as I pivoted over to her team. I reported to her for all of like 2 days. She went over to Databricks and is doing very well over there, along with some of the other people from my team. But like for a while, it was just like me and two other people running an entire territory meant for six AEs by ourselves
Right.
for like 6 months. It was interesting. It was a fun
That's
ride, but
awesome. That's awesome. Cool, cool, cool. Well, let's talk about the evolution of Alteryx a bit. When you started, it was all about getting analysts out of Excel, easy access to data, these types of things. Obviously, every company is repositioning itself towards an AI play, you guys especially. How has that positioning changed your sales process? What have you seen from that evolution?
it's funny because like I mean this business is so cyclical. We go through these kind of pendulum swings back and forth. I'll probably reference that a few times, but like the Excel hell problem still exists. So for a lot of the outreach and outbound work that we do, like we are still solving that problem. There are still way too many enterprise companies who run their business on Excel. And that's partially because the Excel models have been around for 10, 15, 20 years and you can't operate without them. So how do companies kind of move out of that spreadsheet world and into a more procedural world, right? A pipeline world that actually has, auditability from, the source system to the report that eventually gets, or the filing that ends up happening. So we still solve that problem, but I'd say that the interesting thing in the market is that there are more uh, points throughout that process where AI is coming to the forefront. So our product positioning isn't really changing in the age of AI. We're still solving the same problem that always existed, which is largely data workers, whether you're an HR analyst or a supply chain analyst or an accountant, right? You're getting data from a system. You need to do something with that data, and then you need to tell somebody or put together a report with your findings. Now a lot of that middle part is being used by AI. And so our
Okay.
pivot has been to, hey, we've always kind of done that middle thing really well in a way that allows the data to be traceable, all of the changes that you make to be auditable and, certified by the governance that IT is putting in place and all those protocols. Now there's just a spot for LLMs that are in the middle of that process. AI is awesome for contextualizing data, but like you still need to feed it good data in order to get the results out of it that you need. It's been the same problem for forever, right? It's the same thing before LLMs were around as just predictive models, right? Forest clusters and linear regressions. It's the same thing. So as long as we can continue to portray that we can help with the everyday data worker, somebody who doesn't know how to code, maybe is an advanced Excel user, but doesn't have like the data science background, we can help that person get data into a system that is governed, certified, approved by their IT or data science teams to use to then contextualize that data in a better, smarter way to make their job more efficient.
That's interesting. It's interesting that some of the marketing terminology has shifted, but the actual like problem being solved and how it's being solved is remain the same. Has the objection changed? So I imagine like when you were selling Alteryx for most of your time there, if not all your time, Excel is great in that it's flexible, right? I can just open up a spreadsheet and I can do whatever I want with it. You want to add some inflexibility into the process, right? Like there's data governance, there's pipe, there's like I want to keep you flexible, but I want to also make it traceable. That inherently adds a layer of rigidity. Has that changed? Has like adding AI into the layer made people more receptive to like not doing it in Excel anymore, or is it the same old ball game for you?
It's an interesting question because you got to figure the accountant or the tax analyst who's just trying to get their job done, like they're just trying to do it as quickly and efficiently as possible, right? So a lot of times they don't follow the right governance protocols. And this is where you come up with what we call shadow IT, right? It's basically technology that's being used without any visibility from the IT side of the house. So a lot of the times when we're having these conversations with our, we're a line of business tool. IT does use us. We have use cases within the office of, technology and data science teams, et cetera. But our bread and butter is the average business user. Um, we help the business user explain why a tool like Alteryx is needed to the folks that only care about governance and making sure that there's no changes being made to the system of record, right? So like over the course of the last 12 years, the pendulum is swinging whether IT has the power or business has the power. What we've noticed in the last few years is that IT is definitely more a part of the conversation now than probably ever in my time at Alteryx.
Okay.
Um, I think AI has a lot to do with that. There's a lot of security questions, and every technology out there has some sort of a co-pilot element to it. We're, guilty of that as well. It's making it super easy, a lot easier to use these types of technologies. But then
Right.
that raises all kinds of security questions, data privacy questions. How are you using our data? What type of data are you tracking? And so a lot of um, the budget conversation and the do we actually need this tool conversation falls solely within the IT. Business doesn't really have as much authority as it did 5 years ago to make those types of decisions.
Interesting. Interesting. That's fascinating. When you position this at Alteryx, what I find fascinating is like you may be, but you're not really selling like AI features directly, but like your pitch is like, great, like we've always been doing this data piece really well. Now it's especially valuable that you have LLMs that open up like this box of possibility with the information that you have. So still use us. So you're pitching the infrastructure. Have you found it like an easier sale, or how is the buyer ingesting that type of like change or that type of like similarity in the
Yeah.
message?
Yeah, it's another really good question, and it's an interesting one. I don't know about you, Warren. I know that you guys have a really great tool. By the way, check out Topic later. Um, but like I don't know what your conversations are, but I'm just getting a lot of tire kickers. Like a lot of companies, especially enterprise companies, like they don't actually know what they want out of AI yet. Like it's
Right.
still very new. ChatGPT exploded on the scene like 18 months ago, right? And nobody really understood the power or what it was, where it was going to go. I think we're closer to that point where companies understand the power, the value, and where it can be most beneficial. But ultimately, in a lot of the conversations that we're in today, it's a lot of discovery. It's like, well, what can you do? I wonder if
Yeah.
that aligns to our corporate initiatives around, efficiency gains that we think we can get from AI. But also, another interesting thing is kind of going back to the budget conversation. Like companies are investing in AI tools. Like a lot of the budget is being pulled from, SaaS systems to, AI toolkits, whether they are in whether they're utilized and deployed and in the right places or used in the right ways or not. It's just like it seems like they are implementing AI for the sake of just testing it out. And that's okay. Like new technology, we want to do POCs, we want to test stuff out, but it does make it harder for, frankly, companies like us to validate and take some of that budget or, earn and keep some of the budget that we have because we're not a true AI platform, right? We are our CEO described it when he first joined the company as we are in the gold rush era, right? Did the miners make a lot of money, or were the people selling the picks and axes making a lot of the money? Like we are the picks and
Mhm.
axes, right? Like we're not doing the
Yeah.
AI work. We are helping create efficiencies for a new AI world. So
Yeah.
without being an AI tool, can we get the AI budget? We're still trying to solve that problem or answer
No,
that
it's
question.
interesting. This is a common theme, and I think one thing that's been common in a lot of these conversations has been what's happened with this new tech is that like specifically boards of directors have come out and said you must find ways to use AI, and I want to see a 5% improvement in EBITDA based on an AI tool usage, right? And the reason they're doing this is that they think either one or two things is happening. They see it as an existential threat, right? They worry that a brand new company is going to do exactly what this company does really fast because they can just rebuild the software from scratch, or that all their competitors are just doing this and they have to move ahead. So there's like an existential threat response that's happening. What then happens on the other side of the fence is like it's kind of interesting. There's a mismatch in like roadmap development, right? Like where like the customers don't know where to use it, and so they're looking to like their vendors or their potential suppliers as like the true consultative sale that we always wanted to be, but we really don't have the answers yet, right? So it's like a great, like, cool. It sounds like, no, you tell me like what part of the process would be better with AI, right? No, you tell me what are the other people using AI for? Well, they just kind of bought this platform. They don't really know what to use it for, right? So there's like a weird roadmap mismatch that I think is really actually started to come. around to being, let's do it the old way. Like, let's move a little bit slower. Let's be methodical. Let's figure out this solves a problem. So that's really kind of fascinating that you're getting more tire kickers. People are coming to you asking how they're using it, and they're running these more POC models. They're saying they have AI initiatives without committing the funds to it. So whether you get a piece of AI spend is really a good way to think about this from a go-to-market standpoint at Alteryx.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of articles and um, different thought pieces on this exact thing, and everybody is saying that exact thing, which is the budgets out there are growing for AI and reducing for other areas, but getting that AI budget is so challenging because you have to prove that you can solve a specific problem. And the other, problem here is Warren, like me as the AI team, right? I've been told by my board that I need to go find these AI incremental gains. Like, who am I talking to? There's dozens, if not hundreds of business
Yeah.
units out there that all have very specific needs. So do I do an LLM approach and create a bunch of GPTs that kind of serve each of them? Is there a niche tool that is gets the most bang for the buck for this particular business unit? Or, like how am I going to go about spending this new budget that I have, which isn't really new budget, it's just moved from one place to
Right.
another.
Right.
It is
Right.
making it challenging for sellers. And, we have to do a better job at understanding kind of what the modus operandi is for the person with the AI budget and how do we get
Yeah.
at that our piece of that piece.
Yeah, what you describe, I often come to the same point. It's new technology that's making old things new again. What you just described is what sales has always wanted to be, right? Like, and that's what we always should have been, right? So it's like, great. Like, how do we figure out how to solve a problem, right? And I've actually found when I'm talking to sellers, I think we're subtly starting to inch away from even talking about having an AI solution and talking about problems to solve that are actually new problems that were kind of unsolvable before. So like, and that's all that matters, right? Like, no one needs AI validation. I actually don't talk about AI and sales processes myself nearly as much anymore. I try to almost openly avoid it. I have a new way of computing information that makes this process better. Is this process better for you? What problems does it solve? It's the exact same paradigm in sales. It's just kind of actually like fresh. Now we have new problems to go after, right? It's kind of what we're always been hunting.
I mean, the key remains is all in the discovery. Just
Yeah.
figure out what, to your point, like what problems are we actually solving? What are you actually trying to accomplish? And it doesn't matter how you get there. If there's an AI element, great, you can go get the AI budget. But at the end of the day, if it's a problem worth solving, they'll solve it. Or
Right.
they will
Agreed.
pay to
And
solve
they'll
it,
pay
is my
for it.
point.
Right. Exactly right. Cool. All right. Let's pivot a little bit into like sales leadership. How are you using it? Any sort of AI tools to manage your team better? How is anybody on your team using AI to create a better buying experience for your buyers?
Yeah, probably compared to some of your other guests that have been on this podcast, like my 2026 goal is to do a better job at this. I don't use AI as much as I nearly should. We have an open AI chat GPT license with a bunch of custom built GPTs that have been super incredibly helpful for a lot of my AEs. We've, built a bunch of our own, talk about the AI data clearinghouse. Like we kind of demo our GPTs in this way because we grab data from our internal
Oh,
Salesforce,
interesting.
from our contracts, from our licensing. Flexera was our licensing provider. We get all of this stuff and we fed it into an LLM using the Alteryx AI data clearinghouse methodology, and then created this GPT that now allows us to do deep learning and a lot of the common things, what is an email that I can send to the CFO at
Oh,
this
interesting.
company who has this many users and so on and so forth. We feed in a lot of use cases and things like that. Hey, I'm talking to a chief accounting officer tomorrow. Like, what are the 5 things that I should care about? And the GPT will spit out basically a PowerPoint ready to go that we can leverage. And then we have other tools to like convert it into our corporate templates and stuff like that. So that part has been amazing. For account research, my AEs are seeing I don't know, a 20x lift on what they were doing before, ripping through 10Ks and all that good stuff to try and find those initiatives that we were talking about, right? To be able to allow for more pointed discovery in those initial calls because we have more data on what potentially people are looking to accomplish. From a sales leadership perspective, um, yeah, I'm bad at this. The one thing that I started doing, I do a monthly pipeline review, which is looking at quarter plus one and beyond for my reps. Just basically like how healthy is next quarter and beyond going to be. And so I started, it would take me so long to like, first of all, I was multitasking while I'm on the call because I'm taking notes, trying to remember everything that we're talking about. And then to do the follow up and say, hey, this is what we talked about. This is what you committed to doing. This is, the next steps. And this is what you said about your, what you're going to use your SDR for, et cetera. And that took so much time. But man, I created a project in ChatGPT that basically gave me the exact output of that message. I would just throw in the transcript and be able to send those things immediately. And that was a huge game changer for me last year once I started doing it. Um, but there's a lot of we just started using you know this. We just started using Chorus and Zoom Info Copilot. Half of our team is has been implemented that now. It's still being rolled out. But starting to dabble into that and kind of getting, being able to coach without being there because you have the conversational intelligence and things like that. It's very brand new. We're still trying to wrap our hands around what that's going to look like. So
No, that's
anyway, but
great. And
2026 for me is the big like I need to double down on this because hopefully I'm at Alteryx for another 11 years, but if I happen to find myself on the street a year from now, if I don't have these AI capabilities, like I'm not going to be able to find a job. That's the reality of the
no,
life
so
now.
whenever I ask this question, it's really a good way to illuminate. Um, Everyone should take pause and realize that when salespeople start talking about how they're using AI, this is exactly how our buyers feel when they're talking about buying products. So you just said to me, great, you know what? Like, I'm not doing anything, right? Like this year, I really have to focus on this. 2025, lost year when it comes to like AI implementation, unlike all the other people you're talking to. I get that exact answer at the same time. And then what happens right after is you just listed off 12 incredibly complex processes that you're leveraging custom GPTs for that you weren't before. And then the second piece of really, again, that salespeople should pay attention to that happened here is you barely mentioned until the very end software that you bought. What you mentioned was, great, we whipped together this GPTs and we fed like information to it, and honestly, they've been phenomenally valuable. And this other thing that my reps can do just with ChatGPT on their own, right? They do really well in a 20x uplift, but I'm not doing anything, right? Like, and we really need to focus on it this year, right? That's how our buyers feel when we're having these conversations. That exact
That's
response
hilarious.
is how everyone is going through it, right? So we should remember that as salespeople. It always kills me. Let me ask you: these are really good systems to be built, right? Who built them? Who built these custom GPTs and got the data through? Is it your engineering team because it's your AI data clearinghouse? Is it RevOps? Is it your sales people just like rallied around and got the work done? How did you build those processes internally?
Yeah, we had a dedicated like Tiger team, mostly RevOps and product marketing, product engineering did play a role. Sales engineering played a role, honestly, so that we could, get a better handle on what we were building, so that we could demo it later. It was a definitely a multi-touch effort. We have dedicated like subject matter experts that focus on different areas of the business. So like I said, we can, everybody from your average tax analyst to an HR person to a supply chain inventory specialist can use our software. So we have custom GPTs that specialize and focus on those particular business areas and the areas that those personas are targeting. So we have an office of finance one, we have a supply chain one, inventory, you name it. We have a GPT that kind of helps us understand what a day in the life of those types of people are. That's one of the things that I love about Alteryx is again, I talk to so many different types of people. I learn so much about these different departments, but also like I'm only this deep. And buyers want to feel like I always say it's like they're all, their own unique little snowflake. Everything in their world is unique to them. And so if we're only this level deep, we're not actually giving them the right buying experience because we don't know enough about them. So these GPTs have been really good at kind of helping us live a day in their shoes in a way and use the right
Yeah.
verbiage and the right language when we're talking to them. And getting customized GPTs in those ways has been really good going back to discovery, like allowing us to ask the right questions to the right people.
Yeah. That is a really good segue because what you're describing is a buy versus build scenario internally when you're talking about this, right? You didn't buy a piece of software to build everything out you just described. Again, other than let's say Chorus and Zoom Info, but again, mentioned it
Yeah.
last. How are you handling that in the sales process when people are like, listen, I have Excel, I have Copilot, like I have Power BI, AI, Copilot, and Power BI. I don't need Alteryx, right? Like, what's that sales conversation like right now for you?
Um, it's a good one because the build versus buy thing always comes down to, do you have the technical skills at the business level to actually use the system that you plan on building? And most of the time, most of the time they'll say yes, and then they'll find out that they're wrong later. So like I just go back to, Power BI is a great example. Power BI is an awesome tool if you're just using it for visualization. It's similar to Tableau, it's similar to Click, it's similar to a lot of these other, visualization, interactive dashboarding type solutions. Can Power BI do data pipelining? Yeah, it's actually really powerful at doing it if you know DAX. DAX is a specific coding language that allows for connections within the Microsoft data universe. Your average accountant is never going to learn DAX. So as much as you say, hey, yeah, we can do that in Power BI, great, you're going to end up with the same problem. You're going to create a system where a business user will then go to you to say, hey, I need these tweaks because I can't do this myself, because you've created a system that is too technical for me to actually change things. And so you're moving from one ticket system to another ticket system, whatever that looked like before. Okay, I'm building this new thing back into the ticket system. The power of Alteryx and what we're hoping is, the vision of AI ready data, which is we are still giving the power to the business to do their jobs just in a governed way that IT has certified and made successful. They don't need to build anything new. They can continue to focus on making sure that the source systems are accurate and up to date, again, certifying the right data assets for use, and then let the business cook at the end of the day. Let them use the certified the pre-approved LLMs and the different things that you've given them access to, and let Alteryx be the glue that keeps everything working together, as opposed to building a brand new system that just is adding another thing on top of your tech stack. So that's how we
Yeah.
address that type of a question or response from a buyer. But honestly, the buyers are a lot of IT folks now, and they push back a lot on that.
Yeah, it's funny. No, you can tell the difference. Right now, that question should have been, how can we figure out to tell what 11 years at a company looks like compared to an average tenured rep, which is about 2.3 years right now. I never heard of DAX and I'm sold. So good pitch. So nice work. Great. So, I mean, let's take the last question. You've been selling into, let's say, the Global 2000 for 5, 6, 7 years at this point. Has anything changed in their buying behavior over the past 12 to 18 months? I know you talked about a shift more towards IT, but overall, just buying process, research, what they expect from you to come to the table with, has anything changed, or is it like everything else kind of remains the same?
No, it's definitely changed, especially post-pandemic, I'd say. There are a lot more approvers in the
Oh,
cycle.
interesting.
So I'll give an example of a customer that we sold to, and this is back in 2021. So this is when it started. This was the first time I noticed this. So we had done 3 deals with this customer, very large company. Um, but we knew their buying process to the T. We knew that they met every Tuesday for any purchase over $10,000, and they approved that purchase, yes or no, on every Tuesday. Um, and if you put in a request on a Friday, it gets on the agenda for that Tuesday. And we had a deal. It was a good size deal. It wasn't a huge deal. It was like 100K, 150K, something like that. And we knew everybody in the approver chain. And something happened, and all of a sudden, like, we missed it one Tuesday, then we missed it the next Tuesday, and then it was the end of the quarter, and the deal slipped, and we were like trying to figure out what is going wrong. And we found out that all of a sudden their process just changed overnight with, everything needed to go to the CFO now. Didn't matter how big or how small, everything needed to go to the CFO. So we were at, like, the VP of finance level. We had to jump 3 levels to get approval for our deal. And that takes more time, right? Because executives are busy. Like, to do that type of analysis on everything, it just takes longer. From then on, like, we tried to go more in depth with mutual action plans, making sure we know the process, medpick. I know you're a big medpick fan, like making sure that we had all of the right elements in place for that paper process, because it was just changing dramatically. I do think some of that had to do with what I talked about earlier, with IT now also getting involved, but also the executives. Like, you see so many layoffs in the last 5 years. We were in a growth economy, right? Like, growth, growth, growth. Wall Street kind of pivoted, and then it became profitability. So with profitability became stricter visibility into what we are buying, because that affects the profitability. Um, those were the big changes that I've seen. So there's just more people hands in the pot when it comes to making decisions. And that does make it harder on sellers, because now we have to think of not just our champion and what they care about, but what is the potential point of view and perspective from the IT group that's going to be oversight. What is the
Right.
perspective from the finance group that's going to ultimately have to pay the bill? Like you need to be making sure that you're putting together a plan to appease all of those different hands that are now in the pot.
It's interesting.
How have you
It's
seen it?
really
Have you seen anything different in that world from?
no. I don't know that I've seen like an increase in the approval for call, but I don't think I would have noticed at the scale that you had have. So that's it's really interesting. You think about this process. The only reason to add more approvers to the chain is because they like enterprises feeling an increase in risk, right? Like that's if there's a decrease in risk, then people at the front line should be able to make decisions more individually than like every $50,000 approval has to be sent to the CFO. And part of that may actually be really structural. Interest rates are not zero
Yeah,
anymore. So like the ROI calculations are greater, right? Like and so those cost pressures are there in a different perspective. A financial modeling might be different. But interesting, like data governance risk, IT risk, there may just be like an uptick in the feeling that like we need to put additional layers in the process. It doesn't seem like that would be it seems like it would be subconscious, not a conscious decision, but also doesn't seem like it would be by default. They're frivolous, right? There's definitely like probably a perception that there's more risk in buying new services or new processes. It also could be, I'll throw this out there and see if the cat looks it up here. There's also more options than there used to be. So like, uh,
yeah,
the optionality may increase. If you think about this space for a long time, you're competing with Excel and maybe like Tableau, right? Like or like for a long time, right? Uh, Now there might be like for this type of budget, there may be like 5x the competition in the space. So like, and each
one hundred
with
percent.
pretty heavy nuance, 20, 30, 40% differences, where a choice in software is a choice in strategy that may not exist. Do you think there's something there? Am I like, I hadn't really thought of the problem before other than just riffing at the moment. Is there something there that might be interesting? Are you facing more competition in your sales process?
There certainly is. One of the challenges that Alteryx has had was we are natively an on-premise product, and so over the
Yeah.
past 5 years, that we came out with a cloud-based edition of our flagship products. But there are other, competitors in our space that have been cloud native from day one. And so as a lot of, IT departments again are taking ownership and moving to a more cloud-centric operating model, right? Less on-prem servers and boxes, more, hyperscalers. That was a challenge for us to scale.
Yeah.
Um, and there are so many, to your point, like technologies out there that do the niche things that, hey, I mean, how many tech startups do you see like a day, basically? Like they're always
Right.
solving a very unique problem. Um, and we are more kind of we're not really big box in this for in the world, but we are like a Swiss Army knife. You can
Right.
use this
Right.
for 1,000 different things, which is
Right.
a kind of a benefit, but also sometimes a hurdle because then you go in there and you're the technology buyer says, well, great, I'm glad that you do all these other things, but we're really only looking for this one thing. And guess what?
Right.
There's a niche player that does this better than you. And so
Great.
even though we are trying to consolidate the toolbox in a lot of cases, we see that, right? Reducing the numbers of technologies. Like if it's a big enough problem, they're going to go with that niche player who only solves this thing, but probably does it better. Um,
Right.
yeah, there's a
In
ton of
theory, like
competition out
Alteryx is
there.
like a 3 to 7 year decision from a strategic standpoint on top of it, right? Like is this not like a rip and run kind of scenario? So it's just like,
So we've always operated in the land and expand model. So we go
okay,
in with a small group, right? Like we
okay,
sell
good.
5 licenses to the tax team, for example, and they,
Gotcha.
do their thing for 6 months, and then all of a sudden they start to see a ton of ROI, and then accounting jumps on board, and then it's 15 licenses, right? And then like, oh, that's awesome. Like audit's now trying to wrangle this thing, and this is an unbelievable, and then it's 25, and then,
Right.
before you know it, we're 3 years later, fully embedded across the whole office of finance.
Gotcha.
So it's a little bit of both.
It's not
So
high
like, but we,
commitment then, right? It can
yeah,
be
but
low
and so
commitment,
that's the
right?
thing is like we don't have like a true from the beginning enterprise sale. It is we have had customers that have chosen to go that route, but like
Right.
usually it's we go in one place and word of mouth spreads because everybody's seeing a ton of success. But again, like when you get that first sale, you need to beat out those niche players. And sometimes
Right.
it's just Excel, right? Cost of doing nothing.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Um, but other times it's, hey, yeah, we're using a specific tax software that does this exact thing that we're looking
Yeah.
to use you for. So
Right.
whatever.
That's a good call out. Cool, man. All right. Well, last question. Just like, do you have any opinions either in sales process or just overall tech and how things may shift at Alteryx? Anything like 2 years from now, the way we're using LLMs, anything come to mind that might be drastically different than we're just kind of really thinking about the problem right now?
Yeah, I will make one comment. This wasn't really on your preview, but one thing I want to address is just like everybody just assumes that in 2 years we're all going to be out of a job because AI is going to take over. Like I think that's total BS. Like the thing that AI right now that LLMs are really good at is I talked about earlier, like taking data or taking a prompt and contextualizing and making the question that you're asking like more understandable for the end user. There still needs to be human interaction to feed in the right data and the right question and then interpret and tell the story of the outcome later on. I think over the next 2 years, the skill sets that we all need to learn in sales, I kind of talked about this earlier, but like in sales and also in all other areas of the world is like we need to really make sure that we know how to work with LLMs. That stuff's not going away. It's only going to make our lives way easier and way more efficient, and we're going to be more productive. And I think the people that are going to benefit the most are the ones that are spending the time to learn how to get the most out of LLMs for the job that they have today. I think that's what we're going to see, and the technologies that are using LLMs to do really cool things that have never been done before. To go back to your earlier comment, like that's
Yeah,
who's going to win this AI fight. You know,
yeah,
whether that LLM is something homegrown, whether it's Claude or Gemini or ChatGPT, whatever. Like it doesn't matter what LLM you're using; it's what you do with it that matters. So those are the skills that I think we all need to do, and that's what I think is gonna, you know, the cream is gonna rise to the crop 2 years from now.
that's a great way to put it. It's like simultaneously like a hot take and really shouldn't be, right? So like on one
Yeah,
hand, as these conversations have evolved, we're this technology in particular is probably the most concerned we should worried about, like being a job destroyer compared to a job creator. So it's worthy of the discussion, right? And it should be thought of, right? Like in a thoughtful manner. On the other hand, it's still relatively unlikely. And if you look at it, like if you look at the evolution of tech, you went from like just analog, everything's on paper, right? And then we got computers on the everyone's desk, which happened like mid '90s, late '90s. But your computer on your desk just turned your notepads into ones and zeros, right? So we have like, we got connected, we started sharing information at a scale that never existed before, but you still had to type everything and read everything, right? This is the first like shift in this type of like digitization where like now you have a new way to compute that actually takes human language and generates new data sets. The new data sets, it could be a problem where we like, great, these jobs that we used to have to do things,
yeah,
we don't have to do them anymore, and we need to find the solution to that. But it also could open up a lot of new areas. This is really like I say picture a world where this is the way we set up transistors was just the way we set up LLMs, and this is what computers did off the rip. Like it would have been, it probably would have been okay, right?
yeah.
Like it's not foreseen that it could have done that, right? So I thought about this last night, and maybe I'll throw it out one more time. Part of me thinks we shouldn't have branded it as AI. We should just say, great, like we got these new chips, man. They're lightning fast, right? Like, and they like, we processed everything that ever happened on Twitter and Reddit and like figured out what humans say next, but with probabilities, which is how your brain works. And it's not AI, it's just new compute. Like we should use it. Like, I wonder what that alternate path looks like. Cause like, it's just like but anyway, I'll throw that out there.
I love it, and I'm gonna make a funny pivot here into our personal lives. But Warren and I have played in the same fantasy football league for 15 plus years now, or whatever. It's the analytics conversation in football. It's like, why do we ever use the word analytics? Now it's the analytics fault. Dude, analytics has been around forever, right? Since you
Yeah,
have information and you make a decision based on the most probable outcome. Like that's just, what do I want to eat tonight? Like I'm going to rely on the analytics of what I like to eat and I'm going to make a decision
yeah,
based on it. To your
you're
point,
right.
like that's kind of just AI. Like we're
Yeah.
feeding it we're feeding it information and we are giving it context and asking it a question. It's just kind of spitting out and regurgitating the information that we've given it. Like,
Right.
yeah, it's a chip. At the end of the day, it's a
Yeah.
chip. I
No,
love
it's
that.
like, well,
And
I'm
it's
glad
just
you
like
pulled it
it's
into
just making us
a
all
nice,
smarter.
relatable analogy. Yeah, exactly right. So, and by the way, it's doing a lot of work that I don't really like doing anymore. So cool, write that persona up, man. I don't really care what a CMO cares about. Just like figure it out and feed it into the machine. Great stuff, Joe. Really appreciate you taking the time. It's been really fascinating to see, like, again, things change, things remain the same is like a good theme, and maybe what we even title this episode. Do you travel a lot? Do you go to conferences? Where should people find you if they wanted to like hit you up?
Yeah, thanks for the plug. I mean, I do travel a lot to customers. I'm mostly on the West Coast. We do have our annual customer conference this year called Inspire. I think we'll be in our 15th or so year. This year it's in Orlando in May. You'll see me there. You'll see us there. We're at a lot of conferences. You know, we partner with Google and Databricks and all the other major players in the data space. So you'll see Alteryx around. But yeah.
Well, if you need your data to be AI ready, call Joe or show up in Orlando, and we'll go from there. So I appreciate you taking the time,
Joe. You can call
Joe.
Warren too. He'll put us in touch.
And go for that. No, I'll take the phone call for you. I'll be your BDR.
I appreciate it, Joe. DAX is. You're ready to do. Ready to give the pitch.
Right. I guess so. I just regurgitate your pitch. I'm just like an artificial intelligence for you at this point. You gave me all this context. I could just regurgitate it. So
perfect.
Great stuff, Joe. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Take care.